there was this push for physical wellness, but recognizing that we had to go beyond physical wellness. When you think about Barbados, full of NCDs, non-communicable diseases, right? And workplaces recognizing these persons are coming into work, but they're also impacted by the NCDs. How do we go beyond just the physical wellness and take a holistic approach to wellness? And with the help of Dr. Dwayne Devonish, he was able to work not only with Gabby Scott, but also with the Ministry of Labor to create this policy. We don't want employers to just see employees as workhorses. They're human beings coming into the workspace, and we need to take a holistic approach to their wellness. As an employee, you bring your whole self to work. You don't leave some of you at home. And imagine being at work, and all of a sudden there's a death in your family, and you get a call. Do you wait to say, let me go home and deal with it? Or you have a reaction at work when you're dealing with it? So how do employers also see a whole human being is coming into the workplace, and the policy helps to give them framework? Let's look at our employees holistically. Let's start to think about them and create programming. Let's create resources that supports them at any stage of their life.
Awesome.
I love the name of this podcast. Just a conversation.
Yes.
When I lived and worked in New York, I worked for a global financial services company. I've been back in Barbados now for 15 years. And one thing I remember from the director of talent strategy, she would always say to us, it's all about the conversation. So when you think about levels, I think that conversations need to be had at all levels, but it starts from the top. So if I'm the leader of an organization and wellness is important to me, but I know wellness should be important to everyone, I'm that person that has to start to install the lifestyle, the mindsets, the attitudes, the behaviors, and be able to have a conversation with my leadership team, with management, with the supervisors, and say, look, this is a huge undertaking, but this is something that is important for us, not just doing the work, but really seeing the results holistically within the workplace from personal and professional. And you need buy-in. So you're going to share this with management, you're going to share this with employees, and you want to hear how they think and feel about this thing that you would like to implement using the 4 E's. So once you've come on stream, you've brought everyone, you've given them the information, you've given them the access, you now want them to be involved in the process. So management leaders, we're not just saying, here's this wellness program, experience it. Employees have to be able to communicate what their needs are. So when you think about financial wellness, two of the core things that come up when I go into workplaces is persons saying two of their biggest needs is more money, finances, as well as getting healthier. So for me, if I consistently ask my team, what are your needs? And they're saying finances, and they're saying getting healthier, but that's where I want to start. I don't want to go do something that they don't want to learn and grow from. Of course, we want to focus on all phases or all of those dimensions of wellness, but you have to be able to listen. You have to be able to understand where your teams are at and be able to include them in the planning and designing as well as the implementation phase, where there's that sense of ownership, where they ain't just telling us we are part of this. They're listening to us, they understand us, they respect us, and they want us to be part of this journey. And that begs to say that employees feel like, yeah, this is a workplace that I want to be a part of because my company actually cares about me. They care about my well-being. And we have to get over, I'm the leader, so I have to do everything. How do we start to delegate to our team members? Listen, show empathy, show that level of care. And when employees start to feel that, they start to come around.
I also recall when those persons go, there's always like, yo, what they went for? Something happened to them? Them crazy? You know, so anybody want to tackle that issue there for me and
that's exactly
expand on and expand on that, and if the framework allows for that.
Because a lot of the onus is still on the employer. So we're going to give you the framework, and this is why now when you come together as an organization, you start to brainstorm and think about what the possibilities are and what can you actually do. So case in point, we all have mental health. Mental health is a state of being, a state of feeling, right? So there's nothing wrong with the word mental health. It is the challenges that people face become actually a mental illness, because all of us have mental health.
Correct.
Right? It just happens that today you're depressed, it gets worse and it gets worse and it becomes an illness because it's literally impacting you. It's stopping you from doing the things that you want to do. And earlier when we were outside, we were saying it can happen to anyone at any point. They just have people that are just mentally tough, mentally resilient that they can handle. So a lot of companies, if they are observant, they will see or know, or employees will be confident enough to have the conversation with their supervisors, with their managers, and say, look, I have this challenge. A lot of persons don't want to speak up because they feel the stigma. They feel that people are going to talk about them. And then why don't we hold other adults accountable? Why do you feel the need to speak about someone who's going through a challenge right now? Let's be a little bit more respectful. What happens if it happens to you? What happens if it happens to a family member? Would you want people to be speaking in that energy and in that form? So I feel like we also have to start holding each other accountable. When you see it, you hear it, you talk about it, and not take offense to for me telling you the truth that I saw or that I heard. I find that within the workplaces, a lot of people can't speak their mind because it's used against them. Right? They feel like if I say this, I'm going to be victimized. But what if what you're saying is impacting someone? I feel like I'm adult enough to say, I noticed this happened, this was said, right? Maybe think about approaching this differently because you don't know how this is going to impact someone else. We don't have a lot of conversations. We go off to the side and we tell somebody about what just happened, but we never confront that person. And it happens in the workplaces consistently. How do we start to have the necessary, the uncomfortable, but very diplomatic conversations? And for me, that's where I am at as well within going into the workplaces. Stop complaining. Let's start to take action on the things that actually bother us. How do we start to find solutions? I say to people, and some people might be offended, but sometimes a lot of who we are as children spills over into our adulthood and we don't deal with it.
Trauma.
And we just expect that I'm supposed to be like this because I've always been like this, but not in here. If I'm going to create a culture, if this is the culture that we want within the organization, I'm saying to you, this is the culture. Do you see yourself working in this space with this energy? And if you can't see that, this is not the space for you. But sometimes in a lot of organizations, you're so far gone because that person's been there for 15, 20 years and people just kind of accept.
Listen, off of my 15, 20, my older folk, off of them.
No, and even among people, it's just in general, because when you think about young persons, it's just, so whenever you hear me speak, you never hear me talk about age. I talk about individual. I talk about a person who's going to come with a particular energy. I don't think that people recognize that sometimes even when you don't speak, you give off an energy. Those are the things that I pay attention to. Barbadians are very good at rolling the mice.
Yeah.
You don't say nothing yet, but you've said so much. How do we speak to that? How do we hold you accountable for the I ain't say nothing, you didn't say anything, but you said a lot. And we don't have those conversations.
We hold it in, yes. We unspoken, and
some companies still have their own policies, like a clean desk policy.
Not the desk.
Right, every few weeks, every few months, make sure you remove whatever paper, put them in the drawer, get rid of things that are old. So I think that some companies are still implementing. And what I love about the policy is, as the Ministry of Labor, as us as a committee, we move around and we talk to people about the policy. Some companies want to go deeper, and that's where now we come in, where we're having assessments, we're having consultations. If they want us to come in now and do workshops, we can go deeper with them as an organization. And once a year right now, the Ministry of Labor, we have a forum where we dissect wellness within the workplace. So these are ways that employers, if they've never heard about the programming, they can come to the forum, learn more about the workplace wellness, and if they actually want to go deeper, they can reach out to us and we can have like a workshop, or we can have a consultation, or doing an assessment. Because the goal of the policy isn't just to share the policy, but be more proactive within organizations, help support them. And we also have some ideas to help them and go in as whether it's once a year doing those checks and balances. So as an organization, you said that you wanted a workplace wellness policy. We came in, we supported you. We're going to check back in 6 months to a year to see. So that's the bigger goal of the policy as well.
I imagine those checkups are really important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. When I
It does.
pay attention to Barbados and corporate and different organizations, there are companies who are doing it, and they're doing it well. They're very progressive. They're saying yes, we're about making money, but we value our staff members. I'm not going to call names of organizations, but there are a few of them that pop up in my mind that I can see that they're very proactive with holistic wellness for their teams. And you can see that, you know that because you can hear how the employees are also speaking about them. When you take care of your people, trust me, they'll speak volumes about you. And then on top of that, other people are going to want to be in that space too, because they see this is an employer that cares.
So, and
Don't be afraid to say it.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, not just paternity leave. There are things that we have known that were considered weird years ago. If you have it on your mind, say it.
And
Say it.
how do people say I need to take this day with not feeling guilty
Yeah.
for saying that they have to take this day, and for me not making them feel guilty as well? How do we keep our thoughts to ourselves and let that be what it is?
Yeah.
So I teach, I do personal training, and I have a client who, she's perimenopausal and she hasn't seen her period for a year. And usually by the time that's transitioning into menopause, and after a year, it came back. Lots of pain. She canceled with me that morning. But then she said to me, I still got going to work because, last week I couldn't go, and I can't not go today because what?
I know, right?
Yeah.
The
We
guilt
feel
that
that
she
all the time.
felt
Yeah.
because she was away last week because of whatever health, and now this thing popped back up and she's all in this pain, but she cannot not go back because somebody's probably going to say something. I find that very well, but it's different for me because I'm self-employed, right? But the whole idea is self-employed or not, if you are in pain, you call in and you say you're in pain, and you're
guess-
going to stay home.
Yeah.
And do not harbor any guilt for your truth. I say to young people all the time, if you call in and sick and you're sick,
that's a matter for
that's
you.
a matter for you. But if you genuinely are, feel no fear, feel no guilt for what you are going through. Let that be a matter for them if they want to think about you in a negative way.
I guess
I'm
it's-
self-employed. If I'm sick, I'm sick. Like,
But that's
if
the
business
thing.
can't make money today,
Because if
and that's
you-
why it's important for me to also think about having other people work for me as well. So you may not be able
Agreed.
to do something, or you might have a business that is just you, but how do you start to think futuristic? I'm a one-man shop, but what happens if something happens to me? Can I train people up that can deliver that product or that service, maybe not like me, but even better than me?
And that is a good plan, because at the end of the day, if you keep on going to work, and you're not well, you're going to break down until you can't work at all. So at some point, you have to make a decision to not go to work for your health.
Can you speak to productivity within those companies and the framework, and why it is important to have these policies in place for companies like that?
So policy is all about accountability, right? So you're bringing awareness to everyone, making sure that everyone is aware, and then everybody's living out that thing that we say that we want. And every company is different. So the work that I do, when I think about workplace wellness, the companies that I've worked with, some of them have invested not just for a day. So we're not just doing a team building session or a wellness session for a day. We want you, Celia, to be in for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, because now because a lot of change don't happen in a day, right? So how do we now start to make the connection? How do we have the conversation as a group? But then I focus on that one-on-one interaction with each person, because how you're going to communicate with me in a group is going to be very different than how you communicate with me one-on-one. So a lot of companies also have to think about, yes, you have a policy, but you need to be able to interact individually with each of your team members as well. As long as we're living and as long as you're working,
Yeah.
a lot of things have to be ongoing, but every company is not able to invest in their staff in the way, but individually we can also invest in ourselves. So if my company isn't giving me what I need, what are things that I can pay attention to in the marketplace that can support my journey?
But not everybody is in a position to invest in themselves.
Investment doesn't
So-
always have to be a cost.
It could be setting boundaries, I guess.
There you go. It doesn't always have to be something that you have to spend money, but you may have to spend your time, you may have to spend your energy,
Time, energy,
to be
yeah.
able to get that information, get that knowledge. When I worked at a global financial services company in the US, there were a lot of things I didn't get, but I went outside the company and I learned things and I did things. So how do we also take that personal responsibility of not waiting and saying, this is who I am, this is what I want, this is how I feel when I don't. So I need to start doing things. So we have to also put some onus on ourselves as adults.
I guess I understand where you're coming from, but I'm coming from a position where it is always
I think that they should have kept the hybrid approach. Because what if COVID happens again?
exactly.
I'm always aware of that, or something else. God
Right.
forbid, but it
Yeah.
could be something else.
Because
you
there
know?
are people who need to be present and accounted for.
Yeah.
And then there are people who don't need to be in the office and they can work from home. Once they're the deliverables, once there's that performance review, you do your job. I don't care if it takes you 2 hours.
Times the work,
Just
yeah.
do the work. If it takes you 8, fine. But every month we need to be able to follow up and see, here are the things that we need to complete within that particular week, that particular month, or within that quarter. So I think there has to also be a level of trust within the workplace. I find that maybe some employers don't trust their teams, hence why they feel like they need to see them. You talked about absenteeism, but there's also presenteeism.
Ah.
I am present don't mean that I am necessarily performing. Don't mean that I am necessarily producing. Don't mean that I'm actually contributing to the bigger value of the organization.
Correct. I know that you hosted the Wellness for Women last year.
This year.
This
Last year and this year.
And this year. It
Yeah.
happened already?
Yeah, March, International Women's Day.
My gosh, I missed that one.
March 7th, 2027. Watch out.
But that is an awesome thing. And I think that workplaces should have events like that. Not just the retreat and we do the 3 days, but something ongoing for wellness for women, because women experience a whole host of I don't want to say issues, but that's the only word that comes to mind.
Say to people all the
People
time,
skills.
if you didn't have that job, who are you? So how do you start to actually lead with your life? So I don't get caught up in titles. I remember when I worked in New York, all these big titles, and I lost my job, I had to move back, right? So I became the chief purpose driver. I made it up. Why? Because we get caught up. We get caught up in titles. If you are a leader in an organization right now and you lose your job, who are you? Let's start there.
Yeah.
So when you start to get to know yourself, what your passions are, your skill sets, what are the things areas that you need to improve on. When fear kicks in, how do you handle that? When stress kicks in, how do you handle that? Right? So when you get to know yourself, you can lead at a level that no title can tell you who you are.
That sounds awesome.
You are an extension of who you are in the workplace. So when Celia Collymore comes to work, Celia Collymore comes to work, right? Regardless. So when I leave work, Celia Collymore leaves work. I'm not trying to put on anything. I'm not trying to be different in any space that I go into. I know people say you have to fragment, but how can I just say, let me just put that side of me. I'm not going to be someone who's going to be yelling and screaming, but I want to be authentically me within the workplace. So I've been raised with values. I've developed my own value system. I want to be able to bring that in the workplace. I want to be able to say to an employer, I want to be here. I see what your goals are. I want to be aligned with those goals. I see that there are some challenges. I want to find solutions for those challenges. That's Celia, the personal brand. And I say to employees all the time, you are delivering a service. Somebody ain't just paying you. You're bringing your value system to work. Stop feeling like the employer owes you anything. You are being paid to deliver a service. If you're an accountant working for Ernst & Young, you're delivering a service. It just so happened that you're within their space, right? So how do we start to say, I am bringing my whole self to work. I have a value system, and that is going to be experienced by others within the workspace. Sometimes we get too caught up with that business brand or that title, and we forget about who we truly are. And if you extend yourself as the human being within the workplace, and if you're good, and if you're kind, and you're understanding, your team members will feel that. And if everybody thinks like that within the workplace, we can get better.
Awesome.